Let's get this started. Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to Let's Talk About Christianity, episode 100 and a half.
100. It's fantastic. This is the second time that we've recorded this episode. I just want to let you guys
know. Technically, it's not the second time we've recorded it.
Technically, it is. We were 25 minutes into a recording a few minutes ago with Dale Jenkins, and then Keith, in the middle of my sentence, says, "You know what I forgot to do?
Oh, man.
I forgot to hit record." And all of that content has been lost.
And, let me tell you, that was really, really good stuff. We hate it that you missed it.
We do. We're sorry that you didn't get to hear it or watch it. Good stuff.
But yeah, I forgot to hit record, and so we're kind of starting. And what a great way to start episode 100.
Yeah, with the mess up. And don't let Keith fool you. Guess whose fault it is?
It was my fault. It was totally my fault. It's totally my fault. But I want to share. Hey, this is a new policy that I've instituted in my office today.
Just today.
Because it's like gardening season over here, and everybody's gardens are busting, and people are like bringing bags of vegetables and leaving on your doorstep, and ding dong ditching you with vegetables. So I grew some grape tomatoes this year. And so I picked them this morning and brought them in. And everybody that comes into my office today is going to get a tomato, whether they want it or not.
It's kind of like Halloween in Missouri, but it's farming.
Yeah. But episode 100, Dale Jenkins was with us, and we hope that he'll be able to rejoin us here in a few minutes. But
we hope
that he will. But so Pablo is back from vacation number 3
in 2 weeks.
And so Pablo, earlier you were telling us about some of the challenges of this campaign that you were just on in Wacho.
Yes.
So tell us again.
Tell us one more time, Pablo.
I'm going to add new information too. Okay?
Oh, no.
It is. No. Yes, because this is not for discouraged people, or it's because the stuff that we face when we work for the Lord. And it reminds me also about Paul. When Paul started his first mission trip in Cyprus, nothing. No, he was in Cyprus, and there is no verses about he had success there.
True.
Okay. Yes. Cyprus is a big island. Okay. To the point. Yes, last week I was in Huacho, and we were 100 people working there. 100 people. It was 80 Americans and 15 translators each. Something. And man, there is
the man is back. Jenkins. Just can't see his face now.
Yes. We have 3 baptism people, 3 new people added to the church. It was one of the hardest campaign I ever been. Okay. But keep working.
Dale, we are recording. This is being recorded. Keith did his one job.
Dale was having some audio issues earlier.
I bet he's having them again.
Get the audio line back out. But anyway,
he's there. He's there.
Yes. So I saw this picture of you, and I almost I was going to get it and like put it up on the screen, but you and Lee and Magali at Chiang Kai. At least I hope you were at Chiang Kai.
Yeah, that was Chiang Kai Castle.
You looked so royal.
I am.
I am. He says, I am.
I am royal. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Kid. Thank you.
So just tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you had there. Hey,
okay.
Are you in yet?
I am here.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, he's back. Dale, we are recording. We are recording.
That's a good thing. It's a good idea when you do a podcast. I've done a lot of them. When you do a podcast, you just record them, I found. If you don't, it's just a good, like a phone call.
Yeah. Well, they lost all that content. None of our listeners or viewers are going to see any of the content that we had in the previous episodes. So,
and we know that was solid gold and probably the best stuff that's ever been put out there. That's always
exactly. It was from you. That's why.
Without a doubt,
things that are deep and intellectual and insightful that will never. I mean, I will never be able to repeat them. They were so good.
Oh goodness! Well, we have Dale Jenkins with us this week on our 100th episode, and we appreciate him coming on this week and being with us.
And now here he is on episode 100.5.
Exactly. So. Exactly.
Hey, guess who's here with me?
Who is with you?
Some of the Spring Meadows youth.
Oh, cool.
There we go. Hey, guys.
Welcome to come over and say hi.
Hey there. Hola, amigos.
And a special guest appearance by?
Why does he keep coming back?
Because I am everywhere. You ask that question, guess what? I ask it every day of my life.
For those of you who couldn't see it was Jerry Elder.
Yeah, Jerry Elder has been, I don't know, is it video bombing or photo bombing? But he keeps popping in. Yeah.
Video bombing.
Video bombing, yes. But okay, so Pablo, tell us some of the challenges that you faced there in Huacho.
Okay. I experienced many things, even me working for during the last 10 years in campaigns or evangelistic or medicals. And when we were given the numbers in the day, at first we hear 500 doors were knocked yesterday, and we were like, wow, that's a lot. 5 studies.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. When you've got more doors knocked, that means you were not well received.
Yeah. 500 doors to 5 studies.
Yes, and that night, kid, and that night we on the lectureship or the Bible study night, it was the very first night that we have no visitors.
Really?
After 2 days working.
Wow. Okay. But things got better.
Those are the things you face, no?
Things got better as the week went on.
We changed of place, and we got very nice people that open our doors. And just the first door, hey, come inside. Oh, I was surprised.
And that's so funny because when if you remember when we were doing the medical campaign there in Huacho, what's it been, 3-4 years ago now? Do you remember the morning that we got to the compound and there were people lined up all the way around the soccer stadium?
I remember that.
Yeah, that's a big change. But and as you were pointing out before, you were talking about the Apostle Paul. How many times did he experience big changes? Going to and I'm thinking of when he went to Thessalonica in particular, because I'm actually going to be preaching on 1 Thessalonians tonight at Dexter, Missouri. But things started out so well, and then he ends up essentially getting ran out of town.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so let's get into the actual content of the episode this morning, and we're just going to keep saying this. This is episode number 100. We're happy.
We actually made it to a 100th episode. That tells me that this podcast is great. It's a great podcast. People want to listen to it, so much that we've made it to 100 episodes of Ramblings by Keith Albright.
Yeah, well, I've been
because in the podcasting world, and I watch podcasts and listen to podcasts, I'm always impressed by the number of podcasts. That's a surety that it's quality.
Exactly. 100% right. 100%. All right. Anyway.
Well, there are a lot that don't make it to episode 100. And so we're I don't want to say proud of that, but we're pleased with that we've gotten to episode 100, and we've endured some challenges and
changes,
and some changes, and
Subject to.
Well, but and I don't want to get off on that totally, but as a blessing, we have, brought more technology in, and we are now able to do things like have Pablo on the show every other week because he's on vacation. And to bring Dale in from where is it again? You are this morning?
I'm in Alons, Tennessee, also known as Allen, Tennessee.
It's Allen. Change the name, Dale. Change the name.
We're doing it. We'll get it done before the night's over.
There you go. Well, you've got about 12 hours left to get it done. So, but we want to talk about encouraging young leaders. And last week it was our goal to talk about that, and we sort of digressed a little as we've been known to do. But that's okay. But want to talk about 1 Timothy chapter 4, and for time's sake, we're going to skip all that we went through before. And Dale, we're just going to let you pick up in verse 6 of 1 Timothy 4, because that's where we ended up last time.
Yeah. So most people think that verse 12 is the key verse of this text, and that's the one that gets a lot of attention. Let no one despise your youth, and that's a great verse. That's great praise. It looks good on a bumper sticker or a decal or a sticker, but there's a whole lot more of this rich text. It really starts obviously in 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 1, but let's go back to verse 6, which may be the highlight of that section, where he says, if you put the brethren in remembrance of these things, you shall be a good minister. And the word good there is I kind of did a little study on it. It could be beautiful, it could be lovely, but the one I like is excellent here. And so the key statement here is, if you do these things that I'm talking to you about, you will be an excellent minister or servant of Jesus Christ. And I think about the fact that we're blessed with some really excellent young ministers. And that's the substance of this whole passage. And if you look at what all he says, we could work our way all the way through it. But let's kind of skip down to verse 12, where he lists about 5 or 6 things in a kind of like a machine gun,
right.
Be an example in speech and conduct and love and faith and purity. But then that list doesn't end there, and we tend to think it does. But then he says to give attention to public reading of Scripture, to exhortation, to teaching. There's 3 more to add to those 6, but it doesn't end there. He says, don't neglect the gift you have. And I think with Timothy, there's no doubt there. He's talking about a miraculous spiritual gift, but James says that every gift we have, every good gift we have is from God. And so if we have a talent today, it's from God. It's not a miraculous gift in the sense that somebody laid hands on us and gave it, but it's still from God. And so we still don't need to neglect the gifts that we have. And then he says to practice these things, immerse yourself in them. I love that phrase, immerse yourself in these things so that all may see your progress. So think about this. Here's Timothy left in Ephesus as a young man, and there's a tendency to not like young men not respect them when it comes to them in any kind of leadership role. And he says, all may see your progress. They're going to be watching you, Timothy. Now, we talked about this on a previous podcast I was on at some point, so I'm going to test y'all and see how well you listen. Where was Timothy?
Ephesus?
Ephesus?
Yeah, you got it. Great.
Ephesus?
And Timothy, who else was in Ephesus?
Aquila.
Y'all gonna look really smart here.
Apollos.
Apollos.
Priscilla.
Apollos. And remember, Apollos is mighty in scripture and eloquent. I mean, Apollos is, top notch. All right, who else?
The Apostle John? Possibly?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people believe John wrote the God account that John wrote from Ephesus. Who else would have Ephesus if they were still alive?
Possibly Mary.
Mary, which imagine you're the preacher there, and you're Timothy, a young man. We don't know if he's married or not. We don't know if he has kids or not, but he's a young man. And so he announces, we're going to have an adult class meeting over in the lobby or in the side room over there. We're going to talk about parenting. And the first day, Mary shows up in the classroom. Like, well, I don't know what I'm going to say now. Mary sitting in the class, it's like preaching when Willard Collins is in the audience. How do I do this? So yeah, Mary's going to be there. And so you also have Aquila and Priscilla, some of the greatest evangelists in the church had. They had everything going for them. But when I read that list of 7 churches in Asia Minor that the book of Revelation is written to, I think about what it would have been like to be a part of these congregations. The church at Philadelphia with an open door. The church at Sardis, where they're in the temple of Satan. You've got all these, we got all these great places. And you immediately would think Ephesus would be the place to be with all those people. But they were fraught with problems. I mean, they had leadership issues, Acts chapter 20. They had a big problem where they didn't respect or love each other that John writes about. And so there's a tendency for them not to respect a young guy. And so Paul says, here's the way you get them to respect you. Not by standing up and say, you must respect me. You teach them to respect you by the way you live, and they will see your progress. And the longer you are there, the more people will respect the fact that you're this guy that's not neglecting your gifts, that's practicing what you do, that's immersed yourself in ministry, that gives attention to the reading of the Word of God, that's an example in speech. It's a beautiful thing that Paul writes to Timothy here.
And I'd like to take what you said there for a second, Dale. And all of it was gold. Every bit of it was fantastic. That's the best content we've ever had on this podcast, Dale.
It wasn't as good as last time, though.
It never.
Yeah, but apparently, if the last time wasn't recorded, so it never happened. I guess that's what happened. So anyway, I'd like to focus on the mindset sort of thing that you kind of mentioned. You alluded to a little bit about how a lot of times it's very difficult for a congregation to, I guess the word would be respect, young leaders, like young preachers and things of that sort. It becomes very hard for them. And it's mostly because, as older folks believe that they know better. They know the way better than the youth do. They know what they need to do to cultivate the youth and so on and so forth. And sometimes that can create a little bit of an environment or a little bit of an atmosphere where it's very hard for the youth to excel. It's very hard for the youth to fulfill the things that we read of right here in 1 Timothy chapter 4 and to do the things that they have and to not neglect the gift that they have and so on and so forth. And I think a lot of times that we need to pay more attention as congregations and be thankful, as Dale said in the previous podcast that didn't get recorded, be thankful for the leaders that we have. Be thankful for the youth that we have that are willing to stand up for Jesus Christ and do the things that they need to do to live a pleasing life unto him. And also be thankful for the young preachers, the young ministers of the gospel that we have in the brotherhood. And we do have a great number. I wish there was more, as you mentioned, Dale, but we have a good number of those guys. And we need to be thankful and we need to be supportive of them as well. Keith, you got anything you'd like to add?
Oh, I do. It's
okay.
The nature of it. First of all, Pablo, you told a story in the previous episode, which did not get recorded, about
every time we say previous episode, we have to say it didn't get recorded.
Right.
Just to jab you a little bit.
But you were talking about sort of quoting or misquoting 1 Timothy 4:12 to an individual within the church. That was good stuff.
When I was young,
included here.
I was young. I'm 18 years old. And I thought I can do anything without ask permission. So when there was a leader of the church that came to me and told me, "Hey, Pablo, you're doing this this is not right. So I just throw a verse from the Bible, no? Do you know the spy of my youth? And this guy was smart, and he told me, but you need to be example first if you want to apply this verse on you. Yeah. And years later, another preacher, one of the principal leaders of the church, he just left the church. He just left, vanished. And and all the Bible studies were on me, because members look at me like I was the more good speaker and things like that. And one day I was passing by for the bathroom area, and the ladies were just chatting between them, and they say, Pablo is a nice guy, but it's not Juan. I remember something else, kid. Another lady add too. Yes, instead he provides food for us, spiritual food. She said, we are going to raise him.
Yes,
like a baby,
Well, I had a dear lady in a congregation that I preached at who was nearing 100 years old, and I had, by that time probably been preaching for 10 years, and I don't know how many times she told me, one day you're going to make a good preacher.
And so Keith, you need to know this, Keith. Here's the life of a minister, okay? There's that time where people come to you after you preach and they say, someday you're going to be a great preacher. And then there's a period of time where people come to you and say, I bet you were a great preacher. Now for some of us, there's a really, really, really short time between those two things, okay? For me, it was 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Someday you're going to be good, and I bet you were good.
Okay,
we all face the comparison thing. Our statistics show that not as many face it on an ongoing basis as I would have thought. We did a survey on that a while back, but everyone faces that. There's going to be people who compare us. I remember a guy telling me he didn't like me because I wasn't, and he called the name of the previous preacher. It's like, well, I don't know what to do with that, because I'm not him and I can't be him, and I don't, you're stuck when somebody does that.
Okay, so let's try to take all of this and sort of put it together. How can we be an encouragement to the young leaders who are in the church? And it may be a young preacher, it may be an older preacher. Dale, a while ago, I started to ask you if you would define youth. How would you define youth? And it's a very subjective term.
Yeah, youth is someone that is older than you are, but not by much. Right, because everybody thinks they're so young,
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, I remember when I was, in my, when I was in my teenage years, I thought 30 was ancient. Well, it really doesn't seem old to me anymore,
No.
So yeah, it's a very relative term. Everyone's young compared. So when I taught a class one time, and the average person in the class had been a Christian more than twice as long as I had been alive. Well, I think when you're in that situation, you need to acknowledge the fact that they are probably going to have some experiences in a positive way that you don't have, and be able to bless the church in some ways. And don't look down on people because they're old or because they're young. I love this topic, Keith, of how do we encourage young guys? How do we encourage ministers? And I've got a few things I've thought of. I didn't write them down, but a few things I thought of since you contacted me. And the first and perhaps the most important, I think, if as an older guy you're going to encourage a younger guy, is to accept the reality that he is going to see some things differently than you do. Mm-hmm. And he's going to, I'm going to be careful with my words here, but interpret some things different than you do, and to do everything in your power not to make a big deal out of that unless it is truly a big deal. Because if you make a big deal out of little things, you're not going to have any credibility with the young man when a big thing comes along that you need to talk to him about. And I think that is something that as we get older, we have, I know I face it. I'll hear a guy talking. I'll think, he didn't do this. He didn't cover this. He didn't touch that base as he went around the corner. And well, it wasn't that important, but in my mind, it's like, man, he's got to do that when he preaches. No, he doesn't. If it's not important, it's not important. Don't make it bigger than it is. And I dread the day when I have to stop preaching. I hope I never have to. I dread the day when I stop preaching and somebody has to be my preacher, and and they have to listen to me whine about their preaching every week. I dread that day for that person.
Oh, goodness.
So I think that's the first thing. Don't make a bigger deal out of things that aren't a big deal than they are. And the second, I think, if you don't mind me going on, is I think we have to be intentional about this.
You've got about 2 minutes to go on.
Okay. Well, you go. Y'all go on then.
No. I'm saying we've got about 2 minutes to get this wrapped up here. So.
Okay.
We've already been going 28
I think we have to be. I get a text message from a friend of mine down in Alabama once every 4 weeks, and I'm sure it's scheduled or something, but it means something to me, and it's always on a Sunday. And he texts me and says, "I just want you to know I'm praying for you, Dad. I love you." Well, man, that means the world to me. I'm not a young preacher, but just be intentional about encouraging people. We send out that prayer every Saturday night, that thing on Sunday where we try to encourage guys not to quit. We're intentional about it. And so we make it a point to encourage each other.
Very good.
And I think that is, first of all, gratitude. We talked about that first. If we don't have an attitude of gratitude for whatever our situation is, then we're missing something that's very important. But I think what you mentioned there, intentional gratitude, it is something that we need to develop within ourselves toward others. Okay, I wish we had time to do a third episode, but unfortunately we are. But Dale, we want to say thank you for joining us. As we were, and I know that this is something that you are passionate about, and that's one reason that I reached out to you and asked you if you would like to join us for this episode. And so we appreciate very much your willingness to work us into your schedule.
Hey, thank all of you for your work, and congratulations on episode 100. And I hope you'll have 1,000 more. Keep at it and keep encouraging guys. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you, man.
Zach, anything to add?
Dale Jenkins. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah.
And Pablo?
Oh, I just got a friend request for Dale Jenkins. I've made it. I've officially made it.
Okay.
There
Thanks,
we
guys,
go.
for everything. Keep working and learning. Every day is a learning process.
Yes,
Every
single day.
Yes, it is. And I'll just randomly throw this out. This very day, you will have the opportunity to impact someone's life for Christ. Don't let that opportunity slide past you. So we are out of time, and so we want to thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
See you guys.
See ya.